got to get myself in center frame. This is going to go in the video and it's going to suck, but that's okay. Hello, Desperado attendees. Thank you for taking time to enjoy a Q&A with the director and the cast of In From the Side. My name is Ben Cahlamer. I am a local film critic with Movie Revue. And I want to extend a thank you to Paradise Valley Community College and the Maricopa Community College District for supporting our festival. Also, thank you to the Phoenix Pride and Ion AZ magazine for helping us celebrate the beauty of LGBTQ+ filmmaking. And I have to say, In From the Side is definitely a hallmark of the beauty of LGBTQ plus filmmaking. And I'm very pleased to be joined with the director and the two leads of the film. Would you mind introducing yourself, gentlemen?
Sure, yeah, I'm Alexander Lincoln, and I play Mark in the film.
And to confuse everyone, I'm also Alexander King, and I play Warren.
And I'm Matt Carter, the film's director, co-writer, producer, or one of the producers.
And everything else.
And everything else.
And lots of other jobs.
Gentlemen, I know it's late, or well, it's early into the evening there in London. You know, one of the exciting things that this Q&A allows me to do is to interact with people from across the pond. I know you're dealing with the sweltering heat that's invading most of Europe these days.
You tell.
We're sweating away.
It's the studio lights, I swear, or it's an optical effect. But I want to say, unfortunately, your suffering is perfect because it looked like most of the movie was frigid, given the time of the year that you shot the film, when the film is set. I was very, very impressed with the level of directing. Your acting is completely on par. I found your lovemaking scenes to be not necessarily explicit, but very realistic. Tell me, please, how this story came about.
So I've been involved with international sort of gay rugby for about sort of 8 years now. I've played for a number of different clubs. It's sort of a world I just immersed myself in, sort of getting back into rugby as an adult. And I think, like sort of many gay men, I sort of didn't have a really good time in sport in school, and finding sport again as an adult was something that was quite, you know, formative for me. And the rugby world is something that hasn't really been portrayed much on film, and there's so many interesting nuances to that culture and to that world that I thought that it was something that was so rich to put, you know, to be available to put on film. And I also wanted to do a sort of a love story that would ground that and, you know, be set in that world. But, you know, it was very much a case of it was a sort of love story first and foremost, but the rugby sort of thing was the setting and the sort of, you know, but also an insight into what it is to be in a rugby club, to have that brotherhood and that sense of belonging and the impact that can have on someone's life. So yeah, it was something I always wanted to write about, and it was good to actually get around to sort of doing it. And, you know, now it's a movie, so.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead, please. Oh, I thought somebody was going to complete.
I would never ever complete one of Matt's.
He always does. He's brilliant. Feel free to, actually.
They're always perfect. I can make no improvement on them.
One of the things that struck me, because you used rugby as an impetus for the story, is that all of the characters and your actors as yourselves had to be very athletic. Was there any training that you needed to do to get ready for the role, or did you find that any conditioning was needed in terms of being able to physically portray the more sporting sequences? It strikes me as not necessarily very violent, but it's very aggressive. And that's something that took me by surprise, because I'm not as familiar with rugby. But but you as actors, you have to prepare for a role. Was there any preparation in terms of that aspect of your performances and your roles in the film?
Okay, well, some of us had rugby playing backgrounds. Me and Alex have both played rugby in the past, and so had a number of the other cast. And yeah, some of it, you know, there were certain roles, as Matt would say, that certain positions on the rugby field that require certain physiques, but not just all kinds of different physiques, because rugby is that kind of game where there's lots of different body shapes and sizes applicable to certain positions. So I mean, everyone kind of came as they were, but we did do, Matt did set up training for us before we started filming, not so much for fitness, but to get everyone's hand on the ball and to get comfortable with the ball, and also just for a bit of camaraderie and a bit of team bonding.
Exactly.
We had brought in a professional coach, so we ran some drills, and that, that worked really, really well for us, didn't it? Until we got to set where, thankfully we didn't have to play an 80-minute rugby game, and
Yeah, I mean, I think
it was very nice and called cut after we'd exhausted ourselves, running around and gave us a break.
It's kind of it's heavily choreographed, a lot of the stuff.
Yeah,
we do like a certain action, and then a lot of it looks worse than it actually is because we do it from several angles, and there'd be crash mat for certain bits, and then we do just the last bit of the impact, which would be the second cut, and you can make it look much more aggressive through the edit as well. But a lot of it was sort of choreographed. We're also quite lucky that through many rugby clubs I know, we had a lot of extras who were, actual rugby players who could, there was always real rugby happening kind of on the pitch around the actors, and then the actors were kind of kept safe by, we said to everyone, don't hurt the actors. They would be, they would be kind of looked after by everyone around them, but they were in amongst the game that was being played essentially, and everything was, shot by shot, sort of choreographed and staged. But yeah, we did a bit of like a sort of coaching session and couple before, just to get everyone to feel more comfortable holding a ball and to kind of build that team spirit, because essentially there's supposed to be these team people who spend all this time together, and just to build that even before we start shooting, I think was quite. I mean, I think it will work great.
It worked with the choreography as well before we started.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think when in the same film had we not had the training, for sure, because it was that camaraderie, it was that just initial impact into the game, because some of the guys hadn't played before.
Yeah, because I think we were quite lucky that most of the cast had some rugby experience. We had a couple of the cast members who'd never played before, so that's why that training was especially good for them, to kind of bring them up to speed, so that everyone had a kind of, some people haven't played for 10 years, so it's just to kind of bring everyone up to speed so that they felt comfortable and looked confident in what they were doing.
Yeah, like you said, thankfully, a good team of extras who are genuine rugby players as well. Yeah. And again, I was, even I hadn't played for a long time, so I was going to just checking certain things, and would I be able to do, even I'd forgotten some of the rugby laws. So yeah, it was good to have people around who are playing regularly, and I think we're really happy with how those sequences came out.
That's amazing, because as choreographed as your production was, it looks authentic and real on the screen, and that's one of the areas that I wanted to compliment you in terms of the editing. There's a very natural progression between the scenes of rugby matches and the transition into the love story. They are two separate, distinct items within the film, but the aggression between the characters is what carries the storyline through. And your editing conveys that exceptionally well. One of the things that you mentioned that also caught my attention was the level of teamwork, both portrayed on the screen and what, as you confirmed just a moment ago, and I had suspected, was that that was something that was built from the beginning of the production. And if you hadn't established that, I think it might have been difficult to convey it through the performances later on, but you did it in an expert way. And as I said, it was something that I really appreciated.
Yeah, we were like a rugby team coming into the movie, weren't we? The whole cast and crew became a rugby, almost exactly like
a rugby family.
A rugby family. Yeah.
It was the cast and crew was like sort of a family by the end. We spent sort of 2 months sort of solidly with each other, doing a lot of cold, wet, team building essentially exercise. The corporate people send their teams of people on these kind of outward bound stuff to do these kind of events that we would these kind of activities. So to build the bonds that we were building. So it was just one giant team building exercise, really, the whole shoot.
Yeah.
but yeah, it was grueling as well. So I think that's, had we not had that bond, it would have been a tough shoot when when it was really cold.
Yeah, when it was nearly like minus temperatures and it was wet, and say we it was tough, but we all had a laugh and everyone stuck together and kind of looked after each other, and it was great.
Yeah.
One of the other things that struck me was how you as Mark Alexander really are, even though you're the lead performance in the film, you're very pivotal and instrumental at keeping that team together, even though it's something that you didn't want, because I think we get through the context of the story that you're searching for something, not just another partner or not just another partner or a love interest, but you don't want to, you're like me, you as Mark, don't want to damage feelings, burn bridges, abandon prior relationships. And I thought that that was a very touching aspect of your character. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you prepared for the love side and the romance of the role?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think a lot of it just sort of came with the script. As much of a cop-out as that sounds, I think that the script itself just lent so much to the characterization of it. It wasn't that much of a jump, if you know what I mean. And then obviously meeting Alex and working with Alex, like we get on so well. I mean, not now.
Not anymore. But we did.
At the start, it's great. But it worked so well, and we have this sort of connection, which I think it's transcended the film now because we're really close mates, and which is lovely, and that's part of that rugby sort of family aspect that we were talking about before. And so I think in preparation for the sort of love scenes, it wasn't so much the love and the romance aspect. Sorry, I've got hair on now. It was more preparing for Mark's sort of journey, balancing, as you said, his sense of belonging and keeping the club together with this thing that he's done, which he's not really proud of, but also couldn't really help himself in terms of lust and want for Warren.
Are you as much of a rule breaker as Mark was in the film?
I'd say, I mean, what would you guys
Slow head
No. I mean, not in terms of what Mark does in the film, no. But I don't really prescribe to rules that much in my day-to-day life. Like, I think that, you got to have fun with stuff, and I think again, not what Mark does in the film. I think that rules are there as a guideline. Yeah, exactly.
The code is more like guidelines.
Exactly.
Touche. One of the other things that struck me was how at the beginning, when you two meet, one of the first questions, Alex, that you ask Alex as your characters is, what are the rules? And there are 3 very descriptive rules that define Mark's relationship with his current partner. And you both have what I would consider, and I'm hoping I'm using the phrase correctly, a very cheeky and intimate conversation about rules, because even though rugby itself is governed in a way, your lives aren't, and you are in the moment willing to explore where the relationship will eventually go. The love, as I said, well, actually, I didn't say this, I will say it, just as realistic as the rugby matches are on screen, your love interest is also very realistic, and it's guided through a lot of drinking and partying and letting off of steam in the club scenes. But how did, for whatever reason, I latched on to that early scene when you are on your second date, and for me, that was a key moment in the film because it defines how all of your future encounters in the film come together. It's very spontaneous, it's very in the moment. And that was another aspect of the film that I really appreciated because love, as I've recently discovered, is very spontaneous. You don't know when it's going to strike. And you as actors portrayed that very well. Is that something that you were able to draw on from your own life experiences, or was it more inherent in the script and you just built upon it?
I mean, probably different for both of us. I don't know, it's a combination of both. It really is. But I think anyone who's been in love or fallen in love, yeah, it's surprising what path it can take you down sometimes. And when the feeling's that strong and that powerful, sometimes that path can be beautiful and wonderful and lovely. And other times it can, yeah, it'll lead you down slightly, it can be slightly down a wrong path and you can kind of chase it in the wrong way. Yeah, and it can be, like I said, destructive. But sometimes, yeah, I guess that can be so strong that you don't really have a choice in that path. That you just kind of, you know, it's like you're going down the stream, and actually, it just takes you that way. Yeah. And it's hard to stop it because it is such a powerful feeling. And when you get into a situation, I think like Mark and Warren do, even though you know morally it's not a right situation to go, they really can't help it. You know, I mean, maybe some people would say, of course they can, but I think no, I think their feelings for each other are that strong. And in the moment, that spontaneity takes over, and maybe they think down the line they might do this, that, and the other, and you try and plan bits and pieces. And I think we all do, but very rarely love goes the way you planned it. And yeah, I think
the way I sort of look at it when I was writing is I've had a kind of a few relationships in the past when you meet someone and there's that instant chemistry that it's almost hard to you think I shouldn't do this, but you're basically fighting a force of nature in some sense. It's human nature. It's the core of what it is to be a person, is to love. And if you meet someone with that connection, it's really hard to sort of almost do the right thing sometimes. And I also don't know if that is always the right thing. Sometimes following your heart. If you're in a wrong relationship, and that can lead you on to realizing that actually you're with someone who isn't right for you, and that it took that sort of connection to realize that, which is what I think happens for Mark. He is in a very clearly a toxic relationship, but was so frightened of being alone and searching for connection and sort of belonging, which is what the rugby club ultimately sort of provides him. But he takes him meeting Warren to see what a real connection feels like for someone who really sees him for who he is and loves him for who he is. And it's difficult to sort of to do the right thing sometimes, And I think going back to what you're saying about rules in rugby, they're called laws for a reason in rugby because they're interpreted. You can't follow rules in rugby. It's such a messy game. You have to kind of interpret and do the best you can. That's why referees, it's very, very contentious in rugby because, they have to basically interpret what they're seeing and make the best choices with what they can. There's no hard and fast way of doing anything. I think that's the same for the love story as well.
It's a nice contrast to the end of the film where, forgive me, Mark's ex-boyfriend or ex-partner shows up at the last rugby match, and he's asking the woman on the sideline, what are the rules? And she corrects him by saying, no, there are laws. And that set again, it was another defining moment for me as the audience watching the film, because it cements what the future is going to be, but it also is very reflective of what's come before it in the movie, because within the intimacy and the spontaneity between Mark and Warren, there are also rules, and those rules are subject to interpretation, whereas laws, even though they are subject to interpretation as well, are more definitive. And so I think it really defines and bookends the nature of the story. Was that originally a part of your screenplay, or was that something that was ad-libbed? Had you intended that?
That dialogue is all there from the scripts. In fact, didn't we ad-lib too much in the film? There's a couple of key lines that I think we all remember we sort of came up with during the shoot, during rehearsal time. But a lot of it was more like taking outlines. So we would cut scenes down, go actually the scene can end here, or like, or that line didn't work, and we just or like it was. Well, I always say.
You say, but do you like saying that line? No, right.
And I didn't think you like
okay.
it.
Yeah, I don't think you like it either. We're going to take it out.
I always said from the beginning, it was never a Bible, it was always a blueprint.
Yeah.
The script is there as a starting point, and through you almost. I quite like when we work doing anything, we sort of workshop stuff and rehearse it, and you start throwing things out and find more natural ways of saying things. But generally speaking, like more of the kind of the conceptual ideas, like you said, that they were there from the beginning of the story, because that was the blueprint of the narrative.
But you were great with us when there were moments. If Matt said, how are you feeling about that line? If we weren't feeling particularly right, or we wanted to say it maybe a slightly different or more comfortable way for us, and Matt was always, give us that freedom, like always. And if we go, okay, let's shoot it, and let's have a look, and then you're like, yeah, okay, great. And other times you might have said, no, let's do what we should have done.
That's the rugby coaching me.
Yeah.
You never you never tell them what they've done wrong. You go, what did you think about that? And then get them to come up with how better. It's always like people always absorb ideas better when it feels self-generated. So, and also you get kind of good ideas from people when you allow them to contribute. That's why I always say, I could tell if a line wasn't working. I'd say, what do you think about that line? And you'd either go, oh, I don't like it, and I could tell, and then
it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel
right. So we either drop it or change it, and keep working the scene until it felt natural and it flowed well, and the chemistry was there.
But that was lovely to work with Matt in that in that way, because you're not always privileged to work with directors that are going to let you do that. No, you're going to do it exactly as it's written. So
that was one of the other things that one of the other feelings that I got out of the movie. It wasn't dictatorial in terms of how the movie progresses. It was very natural. And I think that's one of the things when you get into whether it's a movie about football, American football, or European football or rugby, it's not dictatorial. It's you allow the team to be creative in solutions to problems that are in front of you. And one of the other things that struck me, I have a scene in mind in particular, but one of the other things that I thought that you, Matt, expressed some creative energy was in your cinematography. I love the fact that, I'm going to get geeky on the audience here for a minute, but I love the fact that you shot the movie in widescreen, because it gives such an expansive view, world view of the environment that Alex as Mark and Warren are in. It gives such an expansive feel to the movie, but it also allows you to choose where the characters fall within the frame. If you look at my image, I'm going to have to fire my cameraman because my camera is pointed up and I'm at the bottom of the frame, but I'm centered. And so you appreciate me as a subject, just as the three of you are nicely crammed into a small space. Very,
very hot.
I was going to say uncomfortably hot, but one of the things that I noticed in the sequences in Switzerland, by the way, Alex, you're a terrific skier. Don't let anybody tell you differently.
So on that, neither of these could ski. So whenever you see Alex skiing, that's me as a body double doing it.
Oh wow!
But thank you for the compliment.
You didn't let you have it. Fine.
I did all my own skiing, but I spent.
You actually did all your own stuff. You did all the falls.
Yeah, I did most of my time falling over, which would have reflected reality. So yeah.
That's why they pay you the big bucks, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I take the risk.
One of the things that I noticed with your cinematography was that you injected a lot of emotional imagery as Warren and Matt go to visit Matt's parents in Switzerland. And subjects and lighting start to become off-center, where you get the feeling that Matt isn't so sure, which matches the dialogue. And Warren is much more confident in his decision with respect to their relationship and the passion and the desire between the two characters. but they don't directly communicate that with each other. And so can you tell me a little bit more about how you might have set up particular shots in order to help convey those emotions to us on a different level other than spoken dialogue?
I think in terms of the cinematography, I covered the whole film. I have a process, the process I work. These guys are familiar with the way, because I light my own stuff and I, do all the camera work. And to me, that's such an integral part of the storytelling. A lot of people say, "Oh, is it hard directing and doing the cinematography?" And for me, I'm so fluent with the camera. It's such a big part of how the story you're telling. I always wouldn't like to give up that. I think the way you shoot this and the way you frame things, the way you can layer meaning in composition is such a big part of storytelling. But I mean, in my head, I always have like an edit going of what the scene is going to be like, and I know the shots, the kind of angles I want, and I know how they're supposed to feel. And it's a very intuitive process for me. It's more like I when I'm looking at a frame, I can feel if it looks right or not. I'm like, there's ways you can manipulate the lighting to create a different mood and different tone.
And that's why we had no idea what we were shooting half the time. But it was fun finding out. It was great. It helped with the spontaneity.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's
we knew what we were shooting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff you can do through, every shot was quite carefully considered to, to make it look the way and create them. These guys would know I'd keep going until I got the shot I wanted. I wasn't quite I wasn't Kubrick in the sort of 50 takes, but if it was right after one take, it was right. If it took 10 takes to get it, but we got there in the end. We got the look, we got the feeling. I think more of the shots and
sorry to interrupt you, but on that note, which is something I haven't said to you before, it lends the actors so much like trust and sort of like respect in that way to the director, because if Matt got the shot, he got the shot, and you can trust in that he got the shot.
You didn't need to look at any rushes, did you? You didn't need to worry about it.
It was just I completely fine. If you're happy with it, then I'm definitely happy with it, and that's very rare to have.
It was like that, wasn't it? It was like basically, normally next is you're going, oh no, what was what's I like, and this, that, and the other. But if Matt was like smiling and putting his thumbs out, it was just like I just took it as gospel.
Yeah. At the same time, sometimes after a take, you could see that you were mulling over something.
Yeah, you did always give.
I'd say, do you want to give it another go for you? Because the thing is, I don't know what you've got left in the bag that you're going to pull out, and it could be an amazing take that actually could be something really magical. And I don't even if I'm happy with what we've got, I'm always up for doing an extra one if these guys wanted to, because you never know what magic you're going to get. Yeah. So I think it is. They always say that filmmaking is magic, but it is kind of some sort of weird alchemy that you do where you're kind of putting this stuff in front of the camera, and it creates. You're playing with human emotion. That's kind of a quite mystical thing almost, and you kind of have to treat it like a mystical thing to kind of get, and when it works, it really works.
Totally.
But it's nice to be able to ask that as well, to be like, no, can we take 10 minutes and can it come back? Can it come back? In fact, one scene we came back. One scene we came back 4 weeks later.
Yeah, we shot we shot a scene because these guys got I'll say it was the final goodbye scene in the sort of the small referees room. We shot that at the very beginning of the shoot. And we just thought, because these guys got to know each other for about 2 months and really got into their character, and thought actually they moved that to shoot that almost on the second to last day of filming, and that whole time had time together injected so much more meaning, and it was honestly like night and day. Like that, the first one was good, but then the second time we sort of shot it was just magical. It was it's heartbreaking. People, a lot of people cried during that scene because it is, you really feel the pain of these two characters, and they got to know their characters, after 2 months of shooting as them. To really do that justice, and it was I was always up for sort of doing more if we think we're going to get something special,
or if time permitted.
Which really was the big thing.
We were running against the clock.
I think it's really Scott. He says like no matter what level of filmmaking you're at, they're like it's literally like you're trying to make art and someone's going hurry up, and it's always like that. No matter what level you're at, there's always someone behind you like looking at their watch telling you you're not doing fast enough. So
for all three of you, the dance scenes, the party scene towards the end where Mark's secret is revealed and Warren, your secret is revealed at the same time. How difficult was it for it to be shot, and B, yourselves as actors to be in those type of environments and be able to still emote as your characters? Because when you're in a club, when you're at a party, you can be very easily distracted. And I know you're both committed to your performances and to the movie, But as you said, we're playing with human emotions, and you've got 50 people on a set and music blaring, and
in a very small house.
I love that you think we had that many extras.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have, generally most scenes we had about 10 extras and we had to make them look like. So actually, I'll let you guys answer, but I'd say generally just as a, people, when you watch it in a film, it's very different to how it is in real life. You're in a quiet room that's silent with people standing around, and like it's very, it's the opposite. You're always going to try and pretend that you're in a.
Yeah, it's almost imagining actually a bit like the club scenes that there is loud music like pumping and there's lots of people like running around, but obviously you can't shoot sound doing that. So.
So it's got people shuffling in the back, like
yeah. So the imaginary music. I'm like, hold on a minute, that's not the beat we agreed to. It's
all the nightclub stuff and things, they're all shot during the day before the club's open. So it's not, we're not actually in a live nightclub, it's a staged environment. So and there's people just doing this in the background. And then you layer it all the sound over the top, and
in a way that's trickier than if it was packed and full, like, isn't it? But I mean,
got like the squeaking of like trainers in the back and people going.
But that's part of imagining your world, isn't it? So you don't always get it. Chris Pratt's not really being chased by a T-Rex.
Right.
You've got to you've got to use your imagination for that one. But yeah, that particular one at the end, that we did have quite a lot of people just because we were in a small place, so the house party, and it was. Yeah, and we had short time on that night.
I think that was the one I think I would love to have an extra day shooting, but actually it worked in the end. But we shot that whole scene over 2 days in one house, but it was such a rush. Like we were I was trying to economize left, right, and center. How can we merge shots? How can we tell this with less angles and things? And like we just didn't have enough time to. But I think that chaotic energy kind of came through.
Yeah. It's almost that. Yeah, we fueled it, didn't it?
One of my and we are coming up on time, but one of the last questions that I want to ask and statements that I want to make about the movie that really impressed me was the entire sequence in Switzerland, because I think that's really where Alex, you as Mark have a chance to really express how you're feeling, because there's a level of comfort, and you have Warren along with you. It's a secretive getaway, but Warren is along for the ride. And I've got to say the way the scene is introduced at the airport before you even leave London is something to the effect of, my mom is very harsh on my boyfriends, and so don't expect her to be accepting. And you both get there, and it's nothing but acceptance and love. And I thought that was a nice balance. It plays into the humor, but you have second thoughts as Mark. What caught me by surprise was that it's a stark contrast to the way your parents behaved when they were growing up and formed their marriage. And so I think that really spoke to me as a scene, and I'm not doing a very good job in describing it, but how did that sequence, how did you, both Alex and Alex, imagine that scene playing out versus what was captured on camera?
Which scene is it?
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about the whole period of there in the movie, or
yeah.
Well, I think
they're going through different things, aren't they?
I mean, the characters are going through different things entirely, but I think the whole Switzerland thing, because like it was a little holiday for us as well. Do you know, like we went to where Matt grew up, which is this beautiful, I can't remember what it's called.
It's actually in France rather than Switzerland, but it's never really explained in the film where it is. It's not far.
It's very close.
It's a place called Saint Martin de Belleville, which is like a little small village, it's one of the reasons we shot there, because my parents had a house there. We shot in one of my parents' friends' houses because it was just such a beautiful chalet. Yeah. And it meant we could basically do an away shoot for very little money. Yeah. It didn't cost us anything apart from just transporting people out there.
And I think what that afforded us, or what afforded me, in terms of Mark, was just like this sort of, I mean, Warren and Mark at this point in the story are having, a sort of like holiday away from.
It's just a chance to be completely, it's a chance to be completely free, because they're away, and they're away from everybody in the rugby club and their partners for various reasons. They're not with their partners.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get to actually be completely
Be-
free
be
and
a
in front
couple,
and in front of Mark's
essentially.
parents. Yeah, be a proper couple and be, you know, do the family thing and walk around and not worry about getting caught and hide anything.
You say too much?
No, they've watched the film.
I know, but well,
Yeah. But I think it's going for different things. Like you said, Mark's like kind of, it's a period of the movie where he starts to become conflicted about what they're doing, and that's why he starts sort of seeking advice from his parents, and he's sort of lying awake at night, kind of, you know,
a huge amount of guilt.
conflicted and feeling from guilt. But for me, that's where Warren like really falls in love with Mark. And I think Mark's already fallen for him, but I think that, and for Warren, it's huge because it's acceptance into a family that he's never had, and there are a few clues in the movie that he hasn't had that. And I think that's what, not just searching for somebody like Mark, but he's also searched to be accepted into a family like that. He's never had it, not with his partner's family and not with his own. And it's just, you know, it's magic for him. He's not looking back at this point at all. Well, not that he does much looking back throughout the movie. But yeah, it's a great, I mean, it was one of our favorite sequences to shoot, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was magic. It was magic. It was that. I mean, other than the environment, it was, you know, there's some great scenes there, and a lot happens, doesn't it?
I think
in
it's
that period, for both of them.
For me, the way I thought about it narratively is that they're basically being given a taste of the dream, like what it could be like if they were together without everything else, and it's just you know, it's a shame that they didn't commit to that when they returned to normal life, or that the sort of, it is ultimately a dream and they have to wake up from that dream, that, you know, they have partners and unfortunately they have a little fairyland to get away where they get a taste of it, but it isn't real. And they have that, there's a sort of bit after where we had the little montage, the Christmas bit, before the conversation with the mother, where there's kind of the realization comes back in that, you know, it isn't all lovely, you know, they still do have partners and they've got to confront that when they get back, and, you know.
Yep. One more comment, and that is that I loved the character of Mark. I love the character of Warren, but I think what was one of the awards, the swinging dick, if I remember correctly.
Dick of the day.
Yeah. The swinging dick has to go to Mr. Pink for being such a keen bridge between the characters and the rugby team and bringing the whole third act together. And forgive me, I've forgotten the actor's name, but
Piers Egan.
Thank you. He was such a, you are all bright lights in terms of the way the movie is portrayed. But for somebody who came across as very intimidated by, I think, the rest of his team, he really comes into his own. And that's the other beautiful thing about the movie, is that it's not just centered on Mark and Warren. It allows the entire team to flourish in some way, shape, or form, because it's not, as I said, just centered on the two main characters. But I can't think of another fictional film in the LGBTQIA space that has allowed such a large cast to expand their arcs, but at the same time still be focused on our two leads, and have such a beautiful story. I'm in love with this film. I want to thank all three of you for making such a fine piece of art. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be released in British cinemas, and I don't know if it will be here, but in mid to late September. Did I read that right?
Yeah, so it's coming out cinemas in the UK in September. I think in various places in Europe, it's coming out to November time. And I think by the time you screen this, we can announce that we have an American distributor who's picked it up for a limited cinema release, but if it's successful, will be a wider cinema release. And also Australia and Israel, some other countries that are doing cinema releases for it. So it's amazing that you know, we never, well, we always hope that, you know, a film that you make will find its audience and find legs, and it's been so wonderful that it has.
Absolutely. Well, I think our audience here at Desperado is going to enjoy the film very much. Again, thank you to all three of you for your time today. I really appreciate it. Kudos to the special effects people and the makeup artists on your look here for our Q&A.
Sweaty sheet.
We should also extend our thanks for selecting us and for screening the movie.
Absolutely.
And obviously we hope everyone that comes along really enjoys it, and we look forward to hopefully hearing some feedback and maybe getting over one day. That'd be even nicer. Perhaps next year sometime we'll be over in the States. We hope so.
That'd be great. Thank you again, Alex, and Mark. I really appreciate Matt. Sorry, I knew I was going to screw that up.
Matt, Alex. Yeah, happens all the time.
No, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. The best of luck to you in the release. Congratulations on the film. It's a beautiful film, and I can't wait for audiences to see it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great meeting you.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right, catch you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.